welcome to the Quiet Living YouTube channel. My name is Nicholas, and in this video we're going to install a DIY camper skirting on our 2003 27-foot Dutch Mid-Light camper. Carrie and I, and our dog Diogi, have lived full-time in our camper in Western New York for 3 years, and as each season passes, we slowly try to improve our living space. This fall, we decided to upgrade our skirting. Here are some materials that we prepared ahead of time. We have duct tape, grommets, the grommet tool, adhesive hooks, this roll of Velcro that we didn't end up using, a silver Sharpie, scissors, tape measure and open wheel tape measure, and notes of our specific measurements. So the term skirting here refers to a material used at the base of an RV or camper that creates an air pocket and seals the area between the siding of the camper and the ground itself. The idea is to create a barrier from the cold wind, which if used with other precautions can greatly reduce your heat loss. Our previous skirting was comprised of the green foam board that can be purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot, but we ran into some issues with our free-range chickens. The chickens would come and peck the board, leaving a mess and large gouges, and I'm assuming that they were eating some of it as well. We tried to remedy this by cutting large black garbage bags to cover the foam board, but the bags had to adhere to the camper using tape, which left behind a residue. And not only were the garbage bags unappealing to the eye, but each year we needed new garbage bags and somewhere to store the long, misshapen insulating boards. And so this upgrade will consist of a recycled vinyl billboard. Because the advertising is only printed on one side, we plan to reverse them for a clean, consistent face. It ended up being a bit longer than we predicted, which is fine, because for these sorts of projects, taking away material is always a lot easier than trying to add it. You can see my parents here in the background loading up their much more modern RV. They're going to be leaving and we'll be taking care of their property during the winter. Because it was our first time making a skirting like this, we decided to start with the rear end panel of our camper because it would only be a little bit more than 8 feet as opposed to 27 on the side. We wanted a smaller piece of material to kind of get our bearings of how it's going to work. Because it was recycled, there was a lot of creases and folds in it that would be very time consuming to try to get out, so we just made our measurements the best we could. We guided our long markings with the open wheel tape measure, just drawn taut with bricks on each end, and it worked pretty well. The ground that our camper is currently sitting on is extremely varying, ranging from a height of 4 feet to 1 foot in some areas, so we made our panels the same height all the way down, leaving enough material with the intention to both fold some of the top to create a thicker lip that the grommets and adhesive hooks could secure to, as well as a fold that would be tucked under the camper where the tarp would meet the ground. On this back panel, we made a mark where it would lie on the corner of the camper to help us decide the distance we wanted between grommets along the length, and on the very corner we decided to do 2 grommets, hoping that it would be better reinforcement. We then measured out the distance we wanted for the grommets, which ended up to be about a foot apart, aside from those 2 close together around the corner. And within the seam of the lip is actually 2 long strips of duct tape. I was hoping that if there was too much stress just on the tarp, even with the fold, the duct tape would help it from ripping. This particular type of grommet tool was really easy to use, and honestly, putting grommets in this thing was extremely satisfying. The back bumper of the camper protrudes the wall, so in order to have the skirting lie flush against the wall, we needed to make some slits in it to accommodate for the metal brackets that were sticking out. After that, we grabbed our hooks and carefully lining them up with the grommets, we stuck them onto the camper. The reason why this panel wraps around the corner of the camper so far is because that's the area where I access our black and gray water, and I'll show you more of that later. After completing the back end, we were feeling pretty confident and we decided to move on to one of the longer sides, and we were just going to use the same steps. The seam on this back corner is just an overlap using some of the same hooks holding the back panel up, which is another reason why we put the two grommets so close together here.
It's like snow now.
There is an electrical box on this side of the camper, so we would only need to make one slit in the tarp to accommodate the cord coming from the camper into the outlet. When we progressed to the front end, we realized that it would require a bit more planning. Not only was there a lot of cuts to accommodate the hitch, the propane lines, and the battery wires, but there was a braided aluminum portion that cuts back and the hooks would not stick well to it. So we put that section on hold and decided to tackle the other side first. You can see all the residue left over from our old skirting with all the tape. Carrie actually found out a way to remove some of this, and it involves using gasoline and an old rag, and it's pretty effective. I plan to do a more thorough cleaning later on. The Velcro we purchased was intended to be used on the corners where the two skirt pieces would meet, making a hard edge, but we switched it up and tried this fold-over technique, connecting the current panel to the hooks already supporting the back, and it came out pretty clean, plus easy peasy.
You could have grabbed the camera. You could have grabbed the camera.
ended up cutting the bottom off of some of our adhesive hooks in order to have them fit better with the rippling of our siding. It didn't seem to affect their integrity at all. This side had a lot of tape residue right where the hooks needed to be placed, so I showed Carrie how strong I was, and also how effective the gasoline trick she found turned out to be. We split the creek-facing side of the camper into 2 separate panels on either side of the steps to our door. Again, we weren't sure how we wanted to approach them just yet, and at this point we were losing daylight. Ultimately, we decided to fold our camper steps in and whip together some freestanding wooden steps, which would allow us to continue the skirt underneath the doorway without any strange cuts. Luckily, we even had a piece of scrap that would be a perfect fit. For this small section, I didn't measure out the grommet's distance. Instead, I just stuck the hooks on the camper, and while holding the tarp with one hand, I lined up and punched in the grommets with the other. Then, I overlapped the panels, and with that section mostly completed, aside from the bottom fold, it was finally time for the front. We ended up going above the aluminum plate, and once we got it placed on the camper, it was easier to eye the spots that would need to be cut for all the wires and hitch frame. We made our marks, and just like the other panels, made slots for everything to pass through. For this to slide on and over the extremities, the cuts were made all the way to the ground, and we fixed these areas by adding grommets and weaving cordage through them to close the gaps. The area in the back section where I access our septic can easily be unhooked and folded back temporarily to maintain our gray and black water holding tanks. And that completes our repurposed billboard camper skirting. Overall, it was a straightforward project, and although it could probably use a rinse, in my opinion it looks leaps better than our old dresses. A big thanks to Ashley and Josiah from RVinspirations.com for providing such a detailed description of how this could be done. Let us know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.